Thank you for watching this week's Weatherquest farming forecast recorded on Friday the 26th of July 2019. We're going to start this week's video by taking a look at some of the world weather headlines relating to agriculture around the world, and starting off in the Great Plains and the Midwest of the United States, where we've seen some hot conditions over the last 10 days, and that has put a little bit of heat stress on the soybean and corn crops that are growing there, and they were already off to a slow start to the season because they were planted late with all the flooding that we talked about during the spring months. So certainly behind schedule for at least those two crops in the middle part of the United States. A little bit better news in Brazil. So light rain has benefited the wheat growth in the south of the country, and in the north of the country where the harvest has begun, we've seen some dry, warm conditions there. So good news for farmers in Brazil. Western Russia, rather. We've talked about over the last few weeks the high expectations for the wheat export there, but they have been downgraded slightly over the last week or two, but particularly because of some hot weather conditions that we've seen in Russia, just slowing things down a little bit there. So perhaps the expectation for the export of the wheat not quite as high as it was several weeks ago anyway. They're still expecting their second largest wheat crop on record though in Western Russia. And some good news for farmers in Southeast Europe, especially Ukraine and Romania, especially looking at some excellent prospects for growing over the last few weeks, and also the forecast looking fairly optimistic for the harvest period too there. In the western part of Europe, though, the big story over the last week or two has been the second heat wave that we've seen, and that has brought temperature records for many countries across Western Europe, particularly Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, and Luxembourg, all seeing records broken where temperatures have gone into the 40s and 42.6 degrees Celsius in Germany. 38.7 is a provisional record for the United Kingdom as well. That was observed at Cambridge Botanic Gardens, and still a provisional record, still some calibration to do to that instrument just to make sure that it is reporting correctly, but that would be the hottest temperature on record for the United Kingdom as well. Along with that heat and humidity though, we did see some thunderstorms developing, and I took this video, a slow motion video of a lightning strike in rural Norfolk on Thursday evening. A beautiful high-based thunderstorm, so the cloud based that thunderstorm was quite high, and you can see the rain flowing out of it, and that lightning strike straight down through the middle of it. But a good reminder that lightning can be very dangerous, particularly for farmers out in the fields. It's not a good idea to shelter under trees, and it's really a good idea to just get out of the fields completely when there's lots of lightning happening. This tree in Fressingfield, Suffolk, struck by lightning, and you can see the bark blown off of it. That picture sent in to us by Chris Carriage, so thanks for that. We always encourage you guys to send your photos in and talk to us about how the weather is affecting you. Now, this hot weather that we've talked about, it's been caused by a big dip in the jet stream, so down across the Bay of Biscay and then back up across western parts of Britain, and then on the forward side of that jet stream, the air originating from North Africa and southern parts of Europe, bringing in the very hot conditions that we've seen over the last couple of days. But there is relief on the way to that hot weather. The jet stream weakens quite a bit, that trough kind of disappears, and we see a much more flat look to the jet stream. We call this a more zonal pattern, I think, by the time we get into the middle of next week. But what it will do is it will start to usher in weather systems off of the Atlantic, bringing us into some fresher air, so we'll lose those record-breaking temperatures. Along with that, though, we've still got this stalled weather front for Friday into Saturday. It's going to bring some rain across central and western part or eastern parts of Britain, and that looks like it may stay around with us at least through the end of the weekend, with some heavier rain across northern England and parts of Scotland. Then the next weather system, when that jet stream turns around to the west on Tuesday, rolling across southern Britain, and that will give some rain as well. So still a bit of an unsettled period. Probably have a drier day on Monday in between that front clearing and that next low coming through. But then when that low clears away on Wednesday, we get some higher pressure building there as well. So I think for southern parts of Britain, looking at some drier conditions toward the end of next week. Still a little bit of uncertainty in that, and we'll talk about that in the next couple of slides. So For Cambridge, we've shown these charts before. This is the potential water gain or water loss. So we run an ensemble, a computer model, many different times with slightly different starting conditions to try to give us an idea of uncertainty. And so what this is telling us is rainfall minus evaporation and what the ground will be like in 10 days time compared to what it is now. So we're going to start off the graph here with the rain we're going to see probably through the weekend, and that takes us up to about 20 millimeters wetter than we are at the beginning of the chart here on the Friday. So a wet period there. And then after that, the average line sort of flattens out, but you can see that there is a big spread of uncertainty in terms of some of the computer models suggesting that we could be as much as 50 to 70, perhaps even up to 90 millimeters wetter than we currently are on the ground in Cambridge by the end or by next weekend. Other models, though, have the evaporation starting to win back out again and taking us back down to conditions that are about where we are at the moment. So at the moment, I think in 10 days time, the ground's still going to be a bit wetter than it is currently for Cambridge, but you get a little bit further west away from where that front's going to sit over the weekend, and this is looking at Yeovil in southwest England, and you can see that not much in the way of rainfall minus evaporation through the early part of next week, and then with those fronts coming back in from the Atlantic as the jet stream flattens out and becomes more zonal, we start to see some rain chances there, and that brings us some uncertainty. So by next weekend, the range of uncertainty is that we could be a bit drier on the ground than we are at the moment by about 20 millimeters, or perhaps as much as 20 millimeters wetter as well. So quite a bit of uncertainty at Yeovil, but in general, the average there is that the ground will be pretty similar to the way it is now versus Cambridge, where it's likely to be wetter than it is now. So there is some uncertainty in terms of the timing and amounts of rain we get with these lows coming off the Atlantic. It's always good to speak to a forecaster and discuss that uncertainty and get a little bit of better understanding of what we're thinking on a day-to-day basis as we go into next week. So you can ring us on 09065 777675. This call's charged at £1.55 per minute plus a network access charge, but you typically phone calls around 2 to 3 or 4 minutes, and you get to tell the forecaster what you're doing. It's always good to hear about what you're doing so we can tailor that forecast more to what you're needing to hear, and we can have a chat about the uncertainty there. Just looking at the forecast over the next few weeks, as we always end the farming forecast doing. So the first period here is week 1, which covers the period between the 25th of July and the 31st of July, and that's showing the heat wave still persisting at least for a few days into the early part of next week across Central Europe up into Scandinavia as well, and still above average temperatures expected for eastern parts of Britain as well. So that jet stream just dipping down, as we mentioned earlier in the video, and still bringing in that southerly air across central and western parts of Europe, at least at first. But you can see by week 2, which takes us into the first week of August, that more zonal pattern to the jet stream that we've talked about. So this will steer weather systems into Western Europe, and it will also freshen the air as well. It'll be a more westerly component to the air across Northwest Europe rather than that southerly flow that we saw during week 1. The result of that, temperatures still a little bit above average across Northwest Europe, but you can see they're much closer to average than they were during week 1 for many locations. And also worth noting some cooler weather across Western Russia and Eastern Europe as well. Temperatures below average for the time of year in the first week of August there. Then as we we're still talking about week 2 here, and I was just wanting to point out that rainfall is slightly above average across the United Kingdom, pretty near average across central parts of Europe, with that jet stream turning more westerly. But by week 3, we do see a signal for wetter than average conditions. So this will make things a bit tricky, I think, for the harvests that will be going on and for any haymaking that's going on as well. We're looking at rainfall amounts being a little bit above average across a wide area of the United Kingdom and Northwest Europe. So this will mean that the jet stream is probably more significant across Northwest Europe and bringing us these weather systems more frequently, and this pattern really seen into week 4 as well. So week 2, 3, and 4 all looking slightly wetter than average for much of the area around the United Kingdom and Northwest Europe. So again, possibly delaying harvest and certainly haymaking as well. Then by week 4, the other thing to point out is that we're seeing a signal for lower than average pressure across Scandinavia. This could end up bringing in a bit more of a northwesterly flow across the United Kingdom and into northwest Europe. And the net effect for that, with the northwesterly flow originating from the North Atlantic, is that temperatures actually cooler than average by the time we get into the middle part of August. So week 4, the final week of the forecast here, taking us from the 15th to the 21st of August. Just to sum all of that up from a UK perspective, temperatures falling back and closer to normal over the next few days after the heat wave subsides. We'll see some wet conditions across eastern and central areas over the next few days as this weather front is slow moving and to get out of the way. And then we'll see generally wetter than average conditions, it looks like, into the first half of August. And that will, as we mentioned, potentially slow the harvest and the haymaking as we see these weather systems more frequently coming in off the Atlantic. Also, potentially a little bit of a cooler spell of weather with that northwesterly flow developing toward the middle of the month. So thank you very much for watching the Weatherquest Farming Forecast. If you want to get in touch with us, you can send us an email at info@weatherquest.co.uk, or you can on Twitter, #WQFarmingForecast. And don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, to hit the like and subscribe button, and that'll give you that'll give you the notifications when we upload a new video into your inbox. But please do get in touch with us if you've got any comments or any pictures that you want to send us of the weather we've had over the last few days. Thanks for watching.